Hello, my dear friends. I'm Rosni Shah. I welcome you all to our channel Best Notes Tutorials. In this video, I'll be talking about the novel The Labyrinth of Solitude by Mexican writer Octavio Paz. We are doing Latin American literature.
In this video, I will be talking in length about the work of Mexican writer Octavio Paz, and the work's name is The Labyrinth of Solitude. So here we get to know about American literature's wonderful work, and before we move to other pages, let us talk about the author, because from author we will be able to know more essence of the novel. So first of all, let me tell you that this was published in the year 1950 and it became a renowned work of Octavio Paz because it talks about identity of Mexican people, their culture, and the social system of Mexican citizen. So here when we talk about identity, identity of Mexican people was hindered because of so many immigrations, so much of violence, and so much of colonization. When we talk about colonization, let me tell you, in the year 1521, please mark the year 1521, we see Spanish people colonized Mexican areas. All right. Now, after this, we find that Spanish people ruled over Mexican people for 300 years, and as it happened to us Indians, all right, Britishers ruled us, and now we are in dilemma, all right, which tradition to follow. When we talk about language, there is a conflict, all right, there is a barrier between north and southern part of India, all right. We are trying to minimize, we are trying to mitigate the differences, but still we are not able to do that. All right, now why it happened? Because of colonization. All right, two cultures were mixed and we are not able to set our mind which to follow. So Mexican people faced identity crisis and regarding culture as well. Their cultural setup was changed because of colonization, because of attack by other countries, nearby countries, all right, and because of which social system had also upsurged, all right. So here we get to see a turmoil in the life of Mexican people. The book explores. Before this, let me tell you one more thing. Earlier, there used to be community called Aztec and Maya, all right, which had a proper system of their own. All right, Aztec community and Maya community of Mexico had their own culture, but because of colonization, all right, because of external attacks, all these systems were destroyed and people had to migrate, they were dislocated, and in order to save their life they had to switch to some other options in their life. So there we find these three problems in this area. The book explores how being alone or solitude is connected to forming a national identity. Now here we see, because of this turmoil, all right, because of colonization, because of immigration of so many people, we find that families were dislocated. Some were migrated to US, okay, which was nearby country, and some to other places. Because of this, they were isolated. It was like working in a foreign country, all right, and they hardly get chance, foreign people hardly get chance to come back to their family members. It was like that. Once they were dislocated, they got no trace of their families, and some could not come back to meet them. So there was identity crisis, and some were dead because of the kind of destruction, massive genocide which was created, all right. It is not open, okay, it is not shown anywhere, but genocide was done everywhere in different forms. So here also we see the same, and therefore people were isolated. The solitude means being lonely, all right, being lonely, being alone. So this aloofness, this loneliness killed people from inside out. It looks at things like how people in Mexico see themselves, whether as individual or a part of a group. Now see, I told you that Spanish colonization was for 300 years, and 300 years, it is a, you know, a crucial time to change people's mindset. All right, they got opportunity of 300 years to change the mind of Mexican people, and generation by generation they started forgetting their own culture. Aztec, Maya, all these communities, they forgot that what was actual tradition of their race. Okay, so they were colonized and they started following the colonized system. So therefore we find that there is no individuality in Mexican people, and they were in dilemma whether to see themselves as an individual or in a group. Paz also discusses the impact of history, religion, and the search of authenticity in Mexican culture. Now, when we talk about history, we have to go back to 1810 and 1820. This revolution, Mexican Revolution. Okay, this is called Mexican Revolution, and in this revolution, people started fighting for freedom. They wanted freedom from colonization. They wanted freedom from external governance. All right. They wanted freedom from religion that was implemented on them. That is Christianity. Okay, Catholic way of life was promoted by outsiders, which they wanted to do away with. Now see, they wanted authenticity in Mexican culture. They wanted to go back to their culture and follow their tradition, their system. But that was not easy at all, because they had to undergo this 10 years, almost more than that, 10 years and more years of revolution, and then only there was a change. So when we need to understand, when we try to understand Mexican identity, Mexican people, we need to go back and see in history who all had come to colonize Mexican people and implement their way of life, and how people, after frustration, after tolerating them for centuries, now they started rebelling. The story is set in the time after the Mexican Revolution, and it reflects the idea of that period. Now, when we read the story, when we read the novel, we find it is written in essays. Okay, it is in essays. Different events of history is written in essays, and the main character is Octavio Paz himself, along with few members, so that story can be conveyed. Okay, now let's move to this point, Mexican Revolution. Now see, in Mexican Revolution, what people wanted, they wanted freedom. Alright, they wanted freedom, and their idea was to establish a sovereign state. I hope you all know what is a sovereign state. Sovereign state means having power, political power. Alright, when India was under British rule, it did not have sovereign power. Sovereign power was with Britishers, because they were the one who were governing us. Okay, unfortunately. So this was the power which Mexican people wanted to get back in their hands. The main characters are Octavio Paz himself and the Mexican people as a whole, showing different aspects of Mexican life. As I told you, the main protagonist of this novel is Octavio Paz, the writer, author himself, and discussing with Mexican people, the story becomes a complete one. Okay, and all these all these essays reflect different aspects of Mexican life. Overall, the book gives us deep insight into Mexican identity and society. So when we read the book, we understand that what Mexican people used to follow, what they were made to follow, and what were their expectation from their community. Okay, so we see different revolutions which were successful as well, different leaders. Okay, but there was some lagging. Where was that? We will understand in the novel. Friends, let's talk about the theme. Without theme, any of the work will be incomplete, because some will write on religious context, some will write on political, some will write on other topics. So what is the theme of this particular novel? Let's see. Focuses on the concept of solitude. Okay, whatever happens, like when somebody is fighting, when some portion is being colonized, when somebody is being enslaved, okay, solitude is the one which remains. Okay, aloofness, loneliness kills them, because their power will be snatched, and without power they will be helpless, and gradually they become alone. And the one who is enslaving them, they will never want them to be in a group, because when we are in a group we are united and we can fight against them. So they want people to be alone, aloof. Let's move to the next point. Examines how solitude deeply affect both Mexican culture and identity. Now see, Mexican people, though they were, just because they were not united, all right, they had to face a lot of problems. Because of, I told you, dislocation, people became marginalized. Okay, they became lesser and lesser in numbers. A new social order was created. All right, new social order was created because of new governance that did not suit Mexican people. So one after the other policies of the government, people became alone. Octavio Paz is the essayist and the author. Who is, why it is told? Because through essays we understand this novel. Presents a detailed, Octavio Paz is a essayist and author, presents a detailed and nuanced exploration. Now see, detailed exploration is being done because people, how they reacted to different political leaders, we get to see that here in this novel. All right, when we talk about the leaders like Porfirio Diaz, okay, let me write here the leaders like Porfirio Porfirio Diaz. Okay, Porfirio Diaz, and he was a wealthy landlord, okay, landowner, and industrialists as well. But there was another leader who wanted him to be removed. He was Francisco Madero. I guess you must have heard about him. Francisco Madero, a leader who was having liberal mindset, and he was from upper class. All right, and Madero started revolution from prison itself. So here we see that as well. He talks about people, leaders, everything. Shows how solitude molds the Mexican way of thinking. Now see, when people were aloof, when people were alone, they wanted change, because with solitude, see, human being is a social animal. He cannot reside in isolation. All right, but wherever torture is being done, we see people are isolated, because people, when they are not together, when they are not in a group, they will lose their power. So everybody gets scared when they start having some meeting, some rally, road shows, etc. It is because people's mindset will be changed through these kind of activity. All right, so solitude, isolation is the main problem of Mexican people. Now he discusses how solitude impact both individual and the collective national character. Now see, here we see that in order to change any system, we need a group of people. All right, a group of people with a knowledgeable leader who has impact upon society, which Mexican people lacked. They got it afterwards. So in this novel we find solitude and identity. Question of solitude and identity: what are we, whether Mexican, whether immigrants to US? Okay, what should we have as our identity? Individualism and collectivism. Individualism, okay, that means again single contribution, what they are doing to the country, to their group, to their community. And collectivism, people were not able to be collective, okay, and therefore we see lack of collectivism. When it happened, it was already too late. Cultural complexities, this had to happen. Okay, first I talked about Spanish colonization, then we see US war, okay, Mexico United States war, and this happened in the year in the 19th century, all right, and we see that Mexican people had to surrender a maximum portion, significant portion to US. Okay, significant portion to US. So what we see, people migrated to United States as well because they wanted to save their life. So because of this, people started doing job in United States. Okay, still we find that Mexican people are in America because of this turmoil only. Historical forces, the same thing happens here as well. Okay, when we talk about historical forces, we have to talk about different parties that Madero had created, okay, Diaz had created, and how United States um, you know fought against Mexican people to remove them from their land and occupy their significant portion and engulf those portions to United States. Okay, now religious influence. When we talk about religious influence, we have to talk about Christianity, because the motive of migrators were to implement their religion upon Mexican people. Now, search of authenticity. Now, see, 300 years of Spanish dominance, then US, and then other revolutions, other wars. Mexican people were tired of all these and they wanted to question. See, in 300 years, when generation changes, all right, under this turmoil, people get hardly any time to think about their ancestors, their community, their tradition. Okay, so when somebody realized that what is our authenticity, what are we actually, then it was too late. So we get to see all these themes in the novel. Dear students, in the background we see that Labyrinth of Solitude emerges in the post-World War era. Post-World War, that means after 1946, 45 to 46. Okay, so after this, what do we find? We find a lot of changes in Mexico. Initially, Mexico and United States were vital enemies because United States had attacked on Mexico, and therefore a lot of Mexican people had to be refugee out of their countries, out of their country. Okay, so United States, in this, because of this World War II, it had made Mexico a friend, and they have resolved most of the issues. They used to quarrel on different topics, but they subdued all these quarrels, okay, because of World War II, because we know that America was actively participating in World War. It was um, you know it was active member in this World War II. We have not forgotten the dropping of atom bomb by United States to Japan. So all that, all right. So after this, there were many things which had happened for a positive note. It was published in 1950. Okay, so see the publication date. So obviously it is going to talk maximum about World War II, which had happened recently. Written in the aftermath of Mexican Revolution. Now see, after Mexican Revolution, which started in the year 1810 roughly to 1820, in this bracket we see Mexican Revolution, and why it was done, I told you, it was for having their identity, having their sovereignty power. So gradually it was achieved and people started moving towards betterment in their life, because there were developments in the field of industrialization, development in the field of urbanization. Okay, so all these aspects were accelerated so that Mexican people can benefit. Now see, the people who were stick to wars, they started giving more importance to intellectual climate as well. Okay, eminent leaders were made and their decisions were correct. Their decisions were in favor of Mexico, and therefore it started blooming, it started growing in leaps and bounds. The collection provides insight into the nation's evolving identity. So their quest was for identity, and because of industrialization, because of urbanization, Mexican people received that. All right, they had now identity, they had country, they had identity, and they were under good leadership. The revolutionary period had profound social political implications. The revolutionary period, that is Mexican revolutions period, was it had profound social and political implications. See, unless and until we rage against some power, okay, unnecessary, illicit power, we are not going to achieve anything. We cannot be tolerant to all the unnecessary and illicit powers. If we do that, then we put ourselves in trouble. Next, Paz explores how these events shape Mexican psyche. Now, see, the problem that they had received, okay, the support that they have received from the leaders and the decision of common people had made social changes, and Mexican people's psyche, the mindset was changed. Alright, now they were towards development. Now they were thinking about upgradation at ground root level. The mid 20th century intellectual climate in Mexico is characterized by cultural introspection. Now, gradually, culture, tradition was also coming back in the life of Mexican people. Alright, they were no more under any of the colonizers. Therefore, the way they wanted to run their government, it happened gradually. The writers and thinkers of the time were grappling with questions of national identity, influenced by both historical events and global intellectual current. Now, the problem was solved here. The writers and thinkers also found that the question of national identity was answered. Alright, now when their desires were fulfilled one after the other, Mexican people also did not have any worries in their mind. So, gradually, they were working at their scale and the leaders were working at their level, and eventually the Mexico's problem was resolved. Friends, let's talk about the characters. Okay, basically characters here means the what kind of novel he has written, Octavio Paz. See, it is not a traditional novel where you will find characters and story will be told. Okay, so here we find no storyline and no much characters. It is collection of essays and reflections. Okay, essays based on the situation that was happening in the country and its reaction from the government and its reaction from the common people. Octavio Paz, the author and essayist, is a central figure. He is the one who is the main character in the novel. Characters are conceptual and symbolic. See, therefore I told that there is no characters. Depict aspects of Mexican identity and culture. There are characters who are representative of different community, representative of culture, okay, representative of leaders, etc. Shares personal thought and observations. This is the best way to convey message to people, I believe, because the thought that people are possessing, okay, their observation it will have more impact upon people than anything else. And it is direct also. What they have seen, they will convey it to the readers directly, not through stories which need to be decoded. Portrayed as a collective entity. Now, observations, whatever observations Paz had, whatever thoughts he had, okay, whatever concepts that he has made in his mind, all were collectively portrayed in this novel. Represent facets. See, facets means aspects of Mexican life and culture, and to do this there are representatives. No conventional cast of characters as found in novel. It is the first point that is being repeated. So this is the overall characteristics of this novel. Friends, let's move towards this summary. Don't expect that summary is going to be a story. Okay, whatever is given in points, please remember that from here only questions will be framed. It is the collection comprises of 9 essays. There are 9 essays in this novel, and the name of all those 9 essays are given here. These are the Pachuco and Other Extremes. This is first essay. Mexican Mask, number 2. The Day of the Dead, number 3. The Sons of Malinche, number 4. Number 5, The Conquest and Colonialism. Next, from independence to the revolution, the Mexican intelligence, the present day, and the dialect of solitude. Now, these are the essays through which we understand Mexican life, its history, and its people. Each essay deals into Mexican culture in relation to human experience of solitude. In all these 9 essays, we find solitude, because whenever war happens, people will be alone by losing their relatives. Okay, when they lose their job because of depression, they will be alone. So on, problems are mentioned in the novel. Octavio Paz explores the inherent alienation between individual and their intentional pursuit of isolation. Now see, inherent alienation. See, Octavio Paz talks about an individual's isolation issues. Okay, some are inherent alienated. Inherent, that means which is given by parents. Parents are alone. Okay, that is why child is also alone. In that way, isolation or segregation is done. Okay, so because of war, these are the what should I say, the outcome. All right, the outcome of war, outcome of dislocation, outcome of turmoil, etc. The exploration begins with the study of the rise of Pachuco in the 1940s and 50s. See, this was the period when Mexicans started developing. Okay, the problem was between 1820 1810 to 1820, and after that gradually things were falling into places, and when it was 1940 and 50s, we find maximum changes, and I have already talked about it, like industrialization, urbanization, modernization, development, everything occurred in Mexico with the help of enemies which became friends, that is United States. Paz observes how the alienation from two cultures resulted in generation of spiritual orphans. Now see, two cultures, that is the old one and the new one. Okay, old generation, new generation. Old were independent, new were governed by external forces. Okay, so spiritual orphans, that means who had religious questions. All right, like whom to follow in religious aspect, whom to follow, whom to worship, etc. The Pachucos, unable to fit on either side of the border. All right, not in Mexico, not in United States. Okay, there is symbolical representation of these two countries. Here we see that after the war, Mexican people were migrated to America for work as a refugee. Okay, so Pachucos are being represented by them, all right, who had identity crisis. Now see, they became increasingly isolated from community, transforming into individuals resistant to external connection. Now see, when they had question in themselves that what are they? Okay, so they wanted to remove everything and restart their life. Like, they neither followed Mexican way of life and neither American as well. Similarly, Paz notes the tendency of people in the United States to isolate themselves from adhering to ancient belief system that advocates separation from other cultures and groups. Now see, I told you that people had a tendency to isolate themselves. Okay, see, United States, I told you that people had gone to United States for work. Okay, because they were dislocated after war, after revolution, and when there was maximum killing going on, in order to save their life, whichever country was available nearby them, they migrated to those countries, and one was United States. So we find maximum connection of Mexico people with United States. Tracing Mexican history from Native Americans to the 1950s, Paz examines how the culture alternately embraces and resists isolation. Now see, some had to accept, embrace means to accept, okay, hug isolation and resist isolation. See, the emotion was not static. The emotion of Mexican people was not static. It's not going to be in a similar way. There was a wave of emotion, sometimes high, sometimes low, and sometimes they wanted to be in community, sometimes they wanted to be with people, but sometimes they wanted to be aloof. So here we find isolation, okay, when they did not want any group to be amalgamated to, okay, joined to, then they resisted in others, and when they wanted to be in the group and follow tradition and have a collective motive to fulfill, then they embraced it. Next, the Mexican mask, as it shows mask conceal, okay, they concealed their true emotions, to protect themselves. How to protect themselves? Because they had to hide their emotion in order to survive. Otherwise, they'll not be able to upgrade themselves. They'll not be able to move ahead in life, because whoever are gone, they are gone. They can never be back in our life. So we need to forget them and move ahead in a gallant way, in an acceptant way. While this approach made sense in the past, given a rapidly changing culture and numerous local rivalries, it had led to division and increased loneliness among Mexicans. Now, see, culture changed. Okay, local rivalries, local quarrels, numerous local quarrels. It has also led to divisions and increased loneliness because of rivalry. Okay, sometimes this quarrel rivalry was amongst their own group. Okay, so they had to do away with all these rivalries, and sometimes when they could not, they used to become alone. See, when we are in group, okay, they can come ask that what is our problems, but when we are alone, it is not going to, nobody is going to ask us what is our problems and how can it be solved. In contrast, events like the Day of the Dead promote unity and the celebration of differences. Day of the Dead. Day of the Dead. Okay, it talks about, the dead, the one who has lost its identity, the one who has lost its emotion. Okay, that person is like a dead, but still, when they accept the outside world, when they accept their present situation, okay, it was a celebration day, because it is finally accepting the changes of the nature. All right, whatever is happening, that is because of some reason, and when they accept it, the life becomes easier. So it was a celebration time, as it's mentioned by Paz. Concluding with the dialects of solitude, Paz posits that all human experience solitude. Life occurring between birth and death represents a liminal space of uncertainty. Paz calls for a fusion of ideas, embracing paradoxes, and encourages vulnerability and self-criticism to attain freedom to genuinely connect with one another. Now, finally, he talks about acceptance uh, acceptance of everything that we see around. Even after problems, we are under tragedies, we are under turmoil, but still life will give chance to change ourselves, to reset ourselves, so not to do away with that opportunity. Okay, whatever paradoxes, whatever contradictory views we have, whatever differences we have, it should be celebrated and accepted, and we should be ready to accept self-criticism as well, that we are lagging somewhere, that we are falling short of emotions, falling short of hard work somewhere. So if we do that, then we can progress, we can have developments in all the aspects. So he concludes all the 9 essays and the summary ends. Friends, this is about today's class. We will meet in our next video. Till then, take care and keep studying, keep preparing for your examinations. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, you can post in the comment section. Thank you.